If you're LS swapping your old car or truck and you're trying to get the AC to work through the PCM, you might run into trouble if you have a blue-green PCM and it doesn't have one of these specific service numbers called out on lt1swap.com. The reason for this is the vehicle that your engine came in originally expected to receive the AC request over the data bus. So this was a serial transmission and not the 12-volt AC request like on the older vehicles. Lucky for us, Rocket Mensch over at ls1tech.com has done all of the reverse engineering necessary to figure out how to make the analog 12-volt AC request work on these PCMs. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I did it to make it work on my swap. Basically, the circuit board still has the required traces to run the analog 12-volt AC request to the processor. But because these newer vehicles didn't use this input, GM left off some parts and didn't connect the outside pin to the internal processor. You can see in the circuit, it's disconnected, and at the processor, just pulled down with a 10K. To fix this, we're going to re-add the parts that GM took off so that the external AC request can actually get to the processor. To do this job, you're going to need a soldering iron, a set of torque bits so that you can take the PCM apart, a nice set of tweezers to hold on to the small components. A hot air gun is optional to remove one of the resistors that you need to remove, but you can also just do it with a soldering iron. And you also need a 100K resistor, a 3K resistor, and a 1.5 nanofarad capacitor. These components are on the screen right now. You can order them really cheap from DigiKey. The first thing we got to do is take apart the PCM. So you just take out the 4 Torx bolts, holding it together, and then I think there is 6 more holding the PCB into the frame. Be careful getting the seal out. You don't want to tear it, and then it should just come apart. Next, we're going to add the 3 kilo ohm resistor. This is on the top side of the board with all the components. Line the resistor up with your tweezers, heat up both sides of the solder, and make sure it flows on each side and you can't pull it off. The next thing we're going to do is remove that 10K resistor so that we can replace the 1.5 nanofarad capacitor and also add the missing 100K resistor. These are on the other side of the board, and from the picture it might be a little bit hard to find, but what I did was reference the F21 in the bottom left corner and the 61, those silk screen labels. That's what helped me figure out exactly where these were. So we'll start by taking off that 10K resistor. Now, this isn't how NASA would do it. They would probably use a hot air rework station, but since I didn't want to plug mine in, and I figured most people don't have them, I decided just to do this with a soldering iron. So you can see I just heat up both sides of the resistor, trying to get them both hot at the same time. Eventually, that resistor is going to come off. It might take a little bit. You got to be patient with it, but eventually it'll come off. You do want to be careful though. You don't want to end up peeling one of the pads of the circuit board off. So you got to make sure you have heat in it and the solder is actually coming loose and it's not just going to peel the pad off the circuit board, because you're going to have real trouble if that happens. Use a hot air rework station if you have one. Next, we're going to take a little solder wick just to clean up the pads. You don't necessarily have to do this. It just makes it a little cleaner. Should have probably done this on the other side. You can try to solder kind of just on top of the solder that's already there. It just doesn't really look as nice and professional. So do whatever you want. It doesn't really matter as long as you get it on there soldered with a solid connection. So we're just going to install the resistor on the leftmost position, and then that capacitor on the rightmost position. This is the I believe it's the 100K resistor and the 1.5 nanofarad capacitor.
Great.
And that's all there is to it. Just put the PCM back together, and now you can use the AC request input. If you got any questions or comments, leave them below, and go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I plan on doing some more videos about my truck build in the future. Thanks for watching.